Daniel's your boy. You've been working with him for quite a while. Why don't you do a bit of an introduction? We're going to talk all things about how we can change our family tree tonight, and Daniel's going to be the case in point for
Yeah,
who's done it and done it right.
yeah, absolutely. Daniel, good to have you, man. Good to see you.
Dang, good to
Yeah,
see you,
I've
bro.
uh, I've known Daniel for a few years. Daniel and I are brothers in Christ. We met through a spiritual mentor of ours, Mr. Fred, and Fred Augustine. I know Fred listens to this, so shout out to Fred.
What's up,
And
Fred?
what's up, Fred? So we met. We had met a couple of times before this, but we met at an event called Fire and Ice out in the mountains here in North Carolina. It was a spiritual retreat, and Daniel approached me in the kitchen that night and was like, "Hey, bro, I heard from Fred that you have kind of taken an interesting path into crypto." He goes, "I think there's a lot there." We ended up talking a lot that night. It was definitely Holy Spirit filled, and so from there we started a journey together and started showing him the little bit that I knew at the time, and this guy drank it all in, absorbed it, and the purpose of tonight is to pass the torch over here to Daniel and let him talk about his beginnings and his journey through the last 4.5, 5 years that we've gone through with COVID and everything coming out of COVID and the current economic and crypto landscape. So he has evolved immensely, and I'm excited to hear him tell his story tonight. So, Daniel, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
All right. Um, well, let's see. I guess I'll, just kind of pick up with that night and that weekend was a big deal. As Trent mentioned, my life is, revolves around my faith, and um, that was such a tough time at that moment. It was 2020. 2021. It was like 2021, right?
Yeah, it was late January
Yeah, so
2021.
late. Yeah, 2021, and the big thing that was going on with me is I had a lot of vision. I had a lot of dreams. I had a lot of like really large visions of what I wanted to accomplish, but I felt like I had um, no real sense of how that was going to start and how something as big as I was seeing could even manifest. And so funding was a real issue, finances, big problem at that point in my walk. So I was praying about this immensely going into that weekend. And the Lord had been speaking to me about multiplying money and how that works. And I hadn't done this up until this point in my life. Um, you know, just hadn't really pursued it. And never met Trent before, and you know everything that was coming through him at that point just felt like direct answered prayer and wisdom revealed to me. Um, I still was, it was still so fresh and so new that I didn't know where that was going to go. So I continued to really pray into it, um, and I really saw this opportunity as there's no other opportunity out there right now that I have seen, may have ever seen possibly, in which the multiplication um, of our investments can actually happen because of this unique opportunity. So I started really, every day studying a little bit more about the technology. Um, and hour 2 hours, YouTube was, I just downloaded, I watched so many YouTube videos on the tech just to kind of get a grip on what am I even getting involved in, and because I didn't want to just blindly move forward. So yeah, long story short, there was a lot of faith that involved in moving forward when I didn't fully understand, and I relied on Trent tremendously to get my footing, and so super grateful for that, brother.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah, and and then after that, I started just understanding more of what I actually held. as an asset. And then obviously as we go, well, maybe not so obvious, but the next few years revealed even more of the issues that the dollar is experiencing, and um, you know, and just how I want to say, when you're uneducated on different asset classes, you don't really know. You just know how to put dollars in a savings account, and that's just kind of, you go about it, and you go check to check, and you hope to get a few percent or whatever, and it's just like
If
it
that.
doesn't make any sense. So I think once I started learning about crypto, I started to understand concepts, more asset concepts, whether it's metals or real estate, things like that, where I don't know, it just wasn't on my radar until I needed it, right? It's like, it was time to plug in and figure this out. So I started just super convicted on what this technology was going to bring. I've experienced enough changes in my life in terms of, I can remember being in the '90s and first doing email and instant messenger. Think about when like AIM was around, and like,
Yeah.
these just like these subtle changes that are introduction to technologies that, you know, looking when you first get introduced, you don't always see the big picture on how that's going to change absolute everyday society. And I think I just started picturing those things in my mind. I mean, how many iPhones have I bought so far? How many, you know, um, I have too much stuff around me all the time that I've participated in that has notably been influenced and handed to me. You know, and it all has blessing and curse to it, right? But I think that I was able to compartmentalize crypto in the same way and see it as an inevitable change. When you look at our financial system, it hasn't been updated in decades. So, I mean, if every other aspect of society has gone through this kind of transformation and this upgrade, how in the world would you think that our banking system would not, right?
Right.
Um, so to me, it just became clear. I definitely give God the glory on that, because I think that if I wasn't praying, I wouldn't have, I think, perceived. And in fact, I could have been buying Bitcoin much sooner, um, because the seed was planted, and if I was really listening, Holy Spirit told me to buy Bitcoin long before I even met Trent. I basically didn't know what it was. I didn't really pursue it, and I wasn't mature enough to listen to the Lord at that time. So I definitely regret it. But I think that, all things come at the right time. And so it was a seed there that really did help, um, to kind of solidify moving forward into this.
What was it?
But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
What initially, after you had that initial seed planted, then we met in January 2021? What were the first couple of things that really struck interest with you? Like, where did you start focusing your, like, what networks or what token networks start? Like, where did you start landing? Did you start at utility? Were you more at layer one, layer two? Where did you start anchoring what you were looking at?
Um, I was fortunate enough to, start in mostly utility. Which again, I credit that to you, brother, because you were able to, you know, even though I really didn't quite get it, I understood you were trying to tell me something very
Yep.
specifically about, this particular class. And it wasn't until I really dove into YouTube and like did more research and where I was like, oh, I see what he's talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, I'm with you, bro. That this is making a lot more sense, right? I mean, to me, it was like the utility play, and then putting together, some you've got to really dig. But like when you start digging and you start realizing the partnerships that so XRP, for example, was my first. I bought XRP first. That was my first purchase, and you know, and I bought in. I think it was like 80 cents or something like that. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
I'm a rookie, but at the time there was still ways to go down in the bear. But I jumped in at 80 cents, and then I ended up DCAing all the way down, obviously. But so but see now it's beautiful because 80 cents is looking prime, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
so um, so again, it was partially was a conviction, a faith of like, well, I don't really get this, but I'm going forward, right? And I'm trusting my brother's help and those types of aspects, which really put me ahead of schedule. And then as I gained more understanding, I started making a lot more educated moves on my own, and I picked
Good.
some other projects that I really believe in and things like that. Um, but yeah, so when you come into when we think about utility, for me, it was like I was trying to bridge it in my mind some way, and it was like if I could have gone back, if you can go back and buy blue chip stocks, dividend stocks, right?
Yep.
And you knew, like, I mean, I don't know, think of any blue chip that before it was absolutely certain that it was a blue chip, right? There's so many plays you'd go back and go, well, of course I would have bought that, you know? And I think I just started seeing what these companies are doing. These companies have um, built a product ultimately, and have created a technology to be used. And what's cool, what I like about it is the product in itself. In some cases, not all cases, but sort of is not 100% reliant on the company who started it. As the concept of decentralization, that also just really struck a chord for me. It was like, okay, this is what we need, right? And there's obviously levels of decentralization that go on, but I think in the tech in itself gives us an opportunity to move in that direction. And I really perceived that component, and I saw the value there. So looking outward in the future, that was really important to me on a personal level, right? So it felt like I could get behind it a lot
Yep.
differently in that way, right? Um, but yeah, most of these tokens, when you study them out, you either like the big thing that I started learning about too was, and as we're in these liquidity cycles, these 4-year liquidity cycles that, as of right now, it's shaped out to pan out in these cycles. It could change, but so just learning the difference between wanting to really take advantage of a larger liquidity cycle and then also investing based on utility and adoption and making smart decisions based on what I felt was going to price appreciate just based on adoption and being used, but then also understanding kind of these ebbs and flows of larger moves in the market. So that's how I formed my portfolio over these last few years. I have certain plays that I'm absolutely only trying to take advantage of this particular cycle. And then I have other plays that I know for a fact I'm holding long term that are also giving me passive income opportunities and paying out and rewarding me for early investing.
Yep.
So it's it's kind of win-win all the way around when you start to really grab it. You know what I'm saying?